It may be that you read your English Bible a lot, but you feel like you really don't get very far beyond a surface level knowledge of the Bible. In fact, it can be quite frustrating when that happens. In this video, I want to give you a little bit of help by providing you with a number of tools that I think will be helpful to get you beyond that surface level that you get in your English Bible without going too heavy and too deep. You don't need to know Greek and Hebrew to be able to use these tools. They're really just a bunch of very simple tools to get you started to go just a little deeper than what you are right now. So let's talk about the tools that I think you should probably put on your shelf or at least have in your arsenal if you're interested in going just a little deeper than where you are right now. At the end of this video, I have got a freebie you can download as well, and it'll give you not only the tools that I mentioned here, but a number of other alternatives just in case you want some variety. So stick around to the end, I'll tell you more about that later on. It all starts with the translation that you work with. Now, translations are something I've talked about here on this channel a whole lot. I teach Greek, if you don't already know that, and which means that we teach you to get beyond the original languages, and it's not so much about finding out, how the translations are all wrong, but really understanding the decisions that the translators are making as they come to actually translate the text from Greek or Hebrew into English. So let's start by talking about what are some really good translations. And I really recommend typically that you start with a translation that's trying to get as literal as possible. In other words, you want something that is as close to the original as the translators can get. Now, bear in mind that it's actually impossible to get an exact word-for-word translation, and even if somebody did come up with that, you wouldn't want to read it because the languages are structured differently. So there is no perfectly literal translation, and therefore there is no perfect translation. In fact, every translation has a degree of interpretation built into it, so don't get too hung up on this. However, I want to recommend a really good translation to start with, and the translation that I typically recommend, that I personally use when I go to my English Bible, is the Legacy Standard Bible. And I've actually done a much more fuller video on this, which you can get access to if you click on the link up here, where I actually did a live stream talking about this and going through a bunch of examples in this translation and explaining the kind of difference between this and the New American Standard, and maybe some other translations here and there as well. But this is a translation I recommend, the Legacy Standard Bible. If you're interested in why, check out the link up here. Now, it's also possible that you want to get a translation that's a little less literal, something that's a little more interpretive perhaps, but is also faithful to the original language. And typically here I recommend the Holman Christian Standard Bible, or as it is now known, the Christian Standard Bible, which is probably a good thing to get rid of the company name out of the name of a translation, right? But anyway, the Christian Standard Bible is a pretty literal translation, but it's designed for more readability. So it's easier to read. In fact, this is the translation that my family uses. My daughters have been using this for a number of years, and they've found it really helpful. Not only is it an easy translation to read, but it's also a faithful translation, even using English colloquialisms at times to really map well, I think, back to the original languages. So the Christian Standard Bible is a more readable translation, and the one that I typically recommend if you don't want something a little stilted or wooden. Not that I think the Legacy Standard Bible is that way, but a lot of people find it harder to read. And if that's you, then the Christian Standard Bible is a very good, more dynamic translation that might work really well for you. And it's typically the more dynamic translation that I recommend. So try the Christian Standard Bible, see how you go. Let me know in the comments what you think of the translations that I recommended here, and if you've got one you think is better, let me know in the comments below. Now, once you've got a translation, I typically recommend that you have a good study Bible. And again, I've got a number of study Bibles, but the one that I do keep going back to, and partly because I'm really familiar with it now, and I know that it's going to give me the kind of information that I need, is the MacArthur Study Bible. I know that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but as far as study Bibles are concerned, it's actually a really solid study Bible. And one of the reasons is that even though it's got John MacArthur's name on it, it's actually written by a whole faculty of professors who have contributed to it, and then it's been edited and put into the format that it is. But it's a very solid study Bible with excellent notes, very, very good introductory notes for each book of the New Testament that gives you a reliable kind of date of writing, background, and things like that. So this is typically the study Bible that I recommend, and you can get it to go with most the translations. I'm not sure if it's actually available yet for the Christian Standard Bible or the Legacy Standard Bible, but I'm sure it won't be far away from the latter. But nonetheless, the MacArthur Study Bible is definitely the study Bible that I recommend the most often and that I use the most often as well. If you're finding this video and this content helpful, then it's possible that we can help you go even deeper, regardless of where you are in your knowledge of Greek and Hebrew. If you go to bma.to/get started, we have a quiz there which will ask you just a handful of questions, and at the end of those questions, it will give you 2 options to take your next best step forward to being able to read and study the Bible in the original languages without tools, without having to depend on readers' editions, and so on and so forth. And of course, if you don't want to learn Greek, we've also got recommendations in this for you there as well. So bma.to/get started, whatever level you're at, this will give you your next best step to get into learning to study and read the New Testament in the original languages. Once you've got a good translation, a backup translation, and a good study Bible, the next thing I typically think everybody really needs to have something of is a background, some background information on the New Testament particularly, but also on the Old Testament as well. And if you want a whole Bible approach to this, then the New Manners and Customs of the Bible is a really good book to get a basic overview of different elements. What this book does is it gives you a sort of a breakdown of things like employment and family structures and all these kinds of different areas, so that if you're doing a study of say Philippians 4, which is a passage we did recently on this channel, then you will be able to look up things like, commerce or social relationships and things like this. Now, it's not going to have answers to every question in it, but it's got a really good sort of variety of backgrounds, and it's a really good starting point. So that's the New Manners and Customs of the Bible. It was published in 1987. It's a little old now, but nonetheless, it's still a really good, reliable translation, and it's easy to get a hold of as well. So check it out. The other thing I think is really helpful, particularly when it comes to narrative texts in the Old Testament or in the New Testament for that matter, is an atlas, because it's easy to sort of not even think about how far distances are. And when you think about the difference between modern travel and ancient travel, which was largely by foot or on an animal or even on a ship in some cases, the times spent to travel from A to B are often things that we don't even think about. But once you realize that, hey, this person just traveled 40 miles and they did it on foot and it happened in a verse's time, you can start to sort of get a feeling for some of the difficulty and some of the even cultural differences between what we're looking at in the narrative and what we would experience today. So an atlas is really helpful, and particularly when it talks about battles and where enemies are coming from and all these kinds of things. So a really good Bible atlas, in fact, the one I typically go to myself is the Crossway ESV Bible Atlas. I find that really good, and there are a number of other really good Bible atlases, and again, I'll leave those in the freebie that you can access by clicking the link in the description, or I'll talk about it in just a moment. But this is a really good Bible atlas. It gives you a little bit of commentary on each of the different texts where they mention locations, and a great set of maps that's going to help you to sort of work out where people went and came from and all those kinds of good things. This helps to get the Bible, the world of the Bible, into our world, and we can start to sort of see how it maps to what we know, the places we've been or perhaps haven't been in most cases, or even places we know of. So Crossway ESV Bible Atlas is one that I really recommend. Now, once you've got those things done, you're always going to run across things where you're going to have questions. Well, how does this work? And in those cases, rather than try and work it out on your own, it's actually really helpful to be able to sort of go look at some good commentaries. So since I've already recommended a study Bible, let's talk about something that's a little bit more hefty, a little bit more explanatory than a study Bible, because you can get single volume commentaries, but typically single volume commentaries are study Bibles on steroids. And really, I think you want to go beyond just a simple study Bible to something a little bit more comprehensive here. So what I recommend is the Expositor's Bible Commentary. This is a multi-volume series. It's a number of pretty hefty volumes, and it covers the entire Bible, but it's far better and more economical than buying one of those multi-volume sets that have one book per volume. This covers multiple books per volume, and that reduces the price of this entirely. And you don't have to buy it all in one go, although you can do so. You can just buy the volumes you're interested in. Start with a New Testament text that you're studying today, and then go buy the other ones as you kind of want to use them later on. So the Expositor's Bible Commentary is written by a variety of scholars who are focused on their particular area of expertise. You get really solid notes, far better than you get in any single volume commentary, much richer, and you'll get a variety of different views that a lot of the authors will put together to say it could be this and it could be this, but we think it's that, or they will just sort of give you a bit of an explanation of what's going on. This is a really good commentary series, and it's one of my first go-tos if I'm just looking for something, you know, to sort of understand something at a high level. The Expositor's Bible Commentary is often where I'll go. If you want to get the updated version, which came out a number of years ago, there is an earlier version as well, which is fine, but really the updated version is good. Otherwise, why buy 2 volumes or 2 sets, right? So anyway, the Expositor's Bible Commentary, excellent multi-volume commentary, multiple books per volume, well worth getting. If you would prefer a 1-volume commentary, well, I'll put one of those into the handout, the freebie that you can get when I talk about that in just a moment. Now, if you want to go deeper than an expository commentary, you probably want to get an exegetical commentary. Typically, exegetical commentaries rely on you having some knowledge of Greek and Hebrew, the ability to sort of think through the grammar a little bit, because they kind of get quite technical, which is why they're designed for exegesis. Unless you've been trained in exegesis, these aren't necessarily going to be the first port of call for you. And for many people, you'll just sort of read through things, you won't understand a bunch of terms, and then you'll skim over things and hope that you've got something useful out of it. So for most people who don't know Greek or Hebrew, an expository commentary such as the Expositor's Bible Commentary is perfect. But if you do have a little bit of exegetical knowledge and experience, you've been trained in this stuff, and you want my recommendation for the best all around, I guess, exegetical commentary series, and here I'm really thinking of ones that are complete, I typically recommend the Baker Exegetical Commentary Series, which is it's got some fantastic volumes in it by some amazing authors and scholars. This is a fantastic set, and every volume has great value, right? This is a much more comprehensive set than others, and it's probably not got the best edition for every book of the New Testament, but every one provides a very solid contribution and is probably going to be in my top 3 for pretty much every book of the Bible. So the Baker Exegetical Commentary Series is well worth getting if you want something deeper than an expositional commentary series. This is one of those ones, 1 volume, 1 book kind of thing. So it's a much bigger set to purchase or to pursue, but the ability to buy 1 volume at a time also makes this a little bit easier to acquire in many ways. So the Baker Exegetical Commentary Series is a fantastic starting point for a good, solid exegetical Bible commentary. The last thing I want to recommend then is some Bible software, and if you have watched this channel for any length of time, you know that I am a big fan of Logos Bible software, and I've been buying books for myself inside of Logos Bible software for 2 decades, more than 2 decades now. So this is a fantastic set of Bible software, and I've even got some, in fact, in the description below, I'll leave some things about how you can even get started, some sort of basic how-to videos that we've created over the years to help you get into Logos Bible software. But the nice thing about Logos Bible software is that all the resources I've talked about in this video are actually available on Logos Bible software. In fact, I'll leave a link to them in the description below so that you can go grab a copy of them there. And if you do want to know more about some of the other resources that I recommend, or even the links to purchase these resources and more, then go to bma.to/basic tools and get the free download, which gives you everything I've recommended here, plus a number of alternatives and secondary kind of recommendations that will really help you to amp up your Bible study as well. bma.to/basic tools. If you're finding this information helpful and you'd like to learn more about studying the Bible, can I recommend to you that you go fill in our quiz? It's just a handful of questions, and at the end of that, it gives you some recommendations for how you can actually learn to study the Bible with a little bit more depth, even if you don't want to learn Greek and Hebrew. We have a basic Greek skills course, for instance, and it will give you an idea of what's in there. So if you are interested in going deeper in your Bible study, go to bma.to/get started, fill in the quiz, and it will recommend to you a next best step. Now, before I go, I'd love to hear from you. What basic tools do you find yourself recommending all the time? Leave a comment in the comment section below. Let us know. We'd all love to share from your knowledge and wisdom, and we can all benefit from each other's recommendations. So thanks so much for watching and for leaving a comment below, and I look forward to serving you and seeing you in the next video. We'll see you then.